The Toronto Blue Jays spent $150 million to sign him, the most in franchise history. How did a player with so much talent and an absolutely stacked resume in Houston fall off as hard as George Springer is right now? I hate to make this video, and frankly, I hope that it becomes irrelevant, but this is the rise and fall of George Springer. George Springer entered the league at age 24 in 2014. He was drafted several years prior, and by age 24, he was considered one of the top prospects in all of baseball. In that first season with the Houston Astros, George Springer didn't disappoint. In 78 games with the Houston Astros, George hit for a batting average of .231, got on base 33.6% of the time, and had an OPS of .804. Very solid numbers for a rookie to say the least, but maybe the most notable stat, and what he's so aptly been nicknamed afterwards, was the Springer Dingers. George had 20 home runs in that year, and considering he only played in 78 games, that would have put him on pace for 41 homers over the course of a whole season. As a rookie, that is absolutely insane. Sadly, George couldn't hit that full potential though, because his season was derailed by injuries. And as we know now, that wouldn't be the last time that George Springer had to deal with a few injury concerns. In George's 7 years spent with Houston, only once was he able to stay fully healthy, with many seasons resulting in at minimum a couple weeks missed. Even with all these injuries and regardless of the time missed, George Springer consistently proved his worth when he was on the field. One could certainly make a strong argument that his best regular season campaign was in 2019, but probably his most memorable moment with the Houston Astros was in 2017 when he won World Series MVP. Obviously, he had a little help along the way, but at this point, that is just water under the bridge. This entire elite body of work with the Astros was enough to make teams forget about the injury history with George Springer and pay him ridiculous sums of money when it was finally time for him to hit free agency. And that is exactly what the Toronto Blue Jays did. On January 23rd, 2021, the Blue Jays inked George Springer to a 6-year, $150 million contract, the largest contract the Jays have ever given out. Fans, myself included, were undeniably excited by this, and at least for a little bit of George Springer, we were satisfied to a point. In 2021, Springer came as advertised. When he was on the field, he was one of the best players out there and had an OPS over 900, but he had trouble staying on the field for long, and just like his rookie season, he was only capable of playing in 78 games. At this point, Jays fans weren't upset about it though, because the offense was already popping off, and this was just the beginning of what was bound to be an incredible stretch with George Springer, right? Well, in 2022, things were actually pretty good. The numbers in production definitely dropped a little bit, but Jays fans were okay with that because George Springer was finally capable of staying on the field for 133 games. His stats were also still good enough to warrant an all-star appearance, so honestly, Jays fans didn't have a whole lot to complain about. If 2022 George Springer is what we got for the remainder of his contract, or at least a couple more years, then I think I can safely say everybody would have been over the moon about it. That isn't what happened though. In 2023, almost a decade after coming into the league, the age started to show for George Springer. George was capable of playing in almost every game, but he finished the season with a .258 batting average, a .327 on base percentage, and most notably a .405 slugging, the lowest slugging of his career by a wide margin. The Springer Dingers weren't coming nearly as often as they used to, and considering his age, Jays fans started to wonder if this was the beginning of the decline of George Springer. This was also really bad from a contract standpoint because George still had 3 years left and was owed $75 million million by the Toronto Blue Jays. Coming off of his worst year in the MLB and being age 34, no one really had any idea what we were gonna get out of George Springer this season. It's safe to say though that nobody expected this.
Whoa, time for your daily Betway breather. A quick reminder that the best place to bet is on Betway. Must be 19 years of age or older to play. In collaboration with iGaming Ontario, please bet responsibly. Now, back to the content.
At the time of recording this video, George Springer has the second worst OPS in all of baseball. He's only hit 5 home runs on the season, which puts him on pace for just 12 Springer dingers on the year. His batting average is below 200, and what's crazy is that it just keeps getting worse. In the month of June, Springer is batting 154 and has an OPS of 440. There's no sugarcoating it, folks. George Springer has played some really bad baseball this year. The perennial leadoff hitter has lost his spot at the top of the lineup and is now lucky to be even getting any playing time at all. In fact, at this point, I think that it's fair to say that the only reason that George Springer even sees the field is because of his contract. George still has 2 years left after this one and is owed $50 million. This deal that once excited fans now looks like a complete bust and one that could cripple the Toronto Blue Jays for years. And at this point, Springer has lost the fans, with many people calling for his release or a trade. I was one of those Blue Jays fans that was extremely excited when they signed George Springer, and I truly, genuinely hope that he can turn it around. But with the way that he's swinging the bat right now, the best of George Springer is almost assuredly behind us, and it has been a sad fall off to say the least. But folks, let me know what you think about all this in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, go Jays go.